two needs of having some sort of a regulation and not over-regulating a sector. And one of the examples that comes to my mind while we were having this discussion was one of my ex-bosses in Mondley's days said that he asked me why cricket is so popular in India. We were all giving all sorts of answers of people's love for the game and all that. But he said one of the reasons is that the rules of game are absolutely clear to every Indian. Whether that person is an umpire or a player or non-player or even somebody who's roaming around in gullies in a city knows the rules of the game of cricket. Right? So that transparency around the rules of the game is first a requirement. And the second part is that while there are rules of the game, but when you play it in the gullies, you do not follow those rules which are applicable in the stadiums. So it simultaneously provides you with enough flexibility to fit the requirements of that particular scenario.
An instant, of course, there are not many challenges on the way. And taste is one such challenge that comes with a lot of R&D and a lot of good ingredients. When I talk about ingredients, they have to start from the scratch, from the farm level. So, of course, because millets have no gluten in them, they're naturally gluten.
So we have to improve the levels of like protein that was extracted. Like rocket is extracting the protein. They must be doing it of 45% protein content. They have done it to 80% protein content, and that is functional human grade. So the question is, what can companies like you can do with companies like us, startups, and how can you supplement our R&D? I'll also, want to tell that we are already working with University of Minnesota, the same department that has brought in Green Revolution, Norman Borlaug. We're working with them. They are like very happy with the findings, and we can actually, change the entire dynamics of protein-based, like plant-based protein in India. So the question is.
Yeah, I will pass it on to Mr. Grover to answer this. I think you are the right person to answer this. Yes, Mr. Grover.
Thanks, Prakash. I think thanks for asking this question. You're right. I mean, Rocket is a global leader in pea proteins, and we have recently started a new plant in Canada. Some of the initial challenges, we have faced, and we started out working with, startups and academia and, other innovation centers like yours, in order to develop few challenges we were facing in terms of taste, as well as the another challenge which we have is probably we will have to resolve going forward is the cost of
companies. It's growing in excess of 10%. A lot of innovation is happening from the ingredient space, with the flavors, fragrance, hardcore ingredients. A lot of investment and R&D is really being put in this ingredient space, and that's really driving a lot of food innovation today. Third,
they are also helping with farmer income that it may not be dairy farmers, but look at soy farmers or almond or rice or millets. So there are different sources of milk which have emerged in the market. So to give I think we have to now move away from giving a stepmotherly treatment to one category and overemphasizing farmers' income on the other. I think all need to be given a level playing field to bring out innovative products and let the consumer make a choice on what is a better option for them to consume.
Foreseen and what we have, I would say, trend is retrospective, what we have observed in a way. And there is a third element which is a trade-off element, which is the convenience. That is what we always see. And when I bring this convenience in, it is taste and health which is more of a driver when there is an element of fear. Vitamin C was flowing off the shelves.
Each company is looking at very specific areas to focus on. Specifically now, if I talk to you, Prakash, with IFF 2.0 coming together, I would like to know individually from each of you, what are the aspects that within health and nutrition that each of your company is looking at, not from a long-term perspective, but from a short and medium-term perspective?
A very, very important part that has taken up in the last few years. And to get into what kind of products were introduced with those kind of ingredients, there were a lot of products which were introduced recently that included the vitamins and minerals, especially the Tata Salt kind of products, a common commodity, where a lot of zinc, iodine and other minerals were used. And we have these kind of cookies and biscuits that came up as well. So that has been a very, very important trend for a lot of the biscuit manufacturers. And of course, the breakfast cereals, Kellogg's and the Fruit Loops, they have introduced a lot of these multi-grain as well as the vitamin.
Edible oils are concerned, I think we understand the basics that India is, net importer of edible oils. We are importing almost, 50% of our edible oil requirement importing from Malaysia, Indonesia. So these countries have been passing through difficult phase. So that is what has, led to increase in edible oil prices in last, few quarters. But you must have seen recently, government has abolished duty on edible oils, and also government is taking all the initiatives to curb the price increase in edible oils, because this is directly linked to inflation. It's a politically sensitive product. Number one. Number two, in terms of starches, you are right that India is, for last, if I look at 1.5 years or 2 years, India is exporting a lot of starch and derivative products. Roughly we were exporting 20,000, this 20,000 has gone up to 70 to 80,000 because India is competitive vis-a-vis China. However, situation is slightly changing now. Probably in next few months, we will start seeing that our exports are not going to be as competitive because China corn is coming down, US corn is coming down. So we may not be as competitive as today we are. So what I see is, unless the new crop of kharif, which will come in October, that is substantially lower prices. Otherwise,
that's acceptable and the good in taste. So definitely we all together can do it. Like in the first session I had from the one sir from you, that we all together can make the things more acceptable. Most of the natural ingredient when we taste and when we incorporate in the product, it changed the taste, color, flavor. But there are the other ways to make it the better.
Yeah. Do you see any kind of a change in trend in the last, let's say, 3-4 years, that people have changed the taste in some way, or they've adapted to some changes in taste because it is healthy? Do you see any change in your product portfolio or development of products?
Yeah, definitely, because as Mr. Mehir Joseph,
because primarily that's when we are going to get big traction on all the interest today consumers have. What I would probably say today is, from a consumer perspective first, that a lot of consumers are showing interest of doing trials in products. So you go out, you buy a protein bar because certainly you want more protein in your system. You have 2 or 3 grams, you realize it's not.
Color, physical stability, and lots of attributes to food products. But we have seen during the COVID pandemic that there has been a major change in consumer preferences and behavior. Now, healthy food is something which is desired by all consumers, and they look at the nutritious value of foods in general. There has also been a shift toward plant-based matrices of foods. And in keeping with the Indian tradition of Ayurveda and leveraging the traditional knowledge of Ayurveda, there's a greater focus on Indian plants and botanicals now. So that is giving an opportunity for newer ingredients to be used. Mr. Sanjay Pajodia and Mr. Rajasan raised they told you about the virtues of ingredients. I totally agree with that. Traditionally, ingredients have been very important.
We are sometimes going back to the original things, that why did an Indian thali exist? You have a Gujarati thali and a South Indian thali, and why did they really exist? There was a series of stuff that was already there, that we needed a balanced diet, and each one carried a certain set of ingredients which had a role in your well-being. And therefore, a lot of going back to the past, the CEO of FICCI mentioned Ayush Ahar thing. So we are going back to the old wisdom, we are using science, and I think the cusp of both of these is really the benefit of modern day science and the traditional knowledge. I think they put together
modules or training certain these kinds of things. So it's very easy. In any question you have, they have examples, they have FAQs. FSSAI is releasing FAQs time to time, but still, it's not very user friendly. Either we have to go to one folder, then to that folder, and identify which regulation is in which place. So I think it's more about the IT structure of the website and user interface of the website, which needs to be worked on. Technically, I think FSA is doing a wonderful job, but I think this interface is something which is really needs to be addressed over here.
While answering this question, we really want to become global leader. We have initiative Make in India already on. Now, since start of this pandemic, there is something different which has come up. All of us know that China +1. That is, we have the opportunity now, whether it is finished products in food industry or ingredients, to be hub for exports from India. However, let's not undermine that we would be competing with the likes of Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, or even Australia and Japan. So we will have to work on it if we really want to grab this opportunity. Good thing is that government is working on it. We have seen that government has given certain PLIs in certain ingredients segment, for example in pharma for APIs.
Might may vary from regulator to regulator, but all over the world, regulators require that all the ingredients have to be listed on the PDP of the product. Now, new and innovative ingredients, they offer a challenge to regulators, because regulators have to ensure that the regulatory framework is such that no unsubstantiated or unwarranted claims are made on the product. Consumers are not misled. There is complete transparency in declaration. And in order to ensure this, sometimes we come out with stringent labeling requirements. But it has to be understood that it is in the interest of the consumer that a regulator comes out with stringent labeling requirements.
Where we are getting the food ingredient up to the farmer level. So we have to more focus on that. And as an industry, it is, every time we suppose that it is an organized sector. It is not organized. We are not organizing it. We are not taking it in our loops. Farmer, it is all organized. When you will connect with them, there are many industries who have good projects with the farmer. In this era, we only procure our ingredient from the mandi level, or either if it is a processed product, then we have the good industry. But when we take the product from mandi, we as an industry, we have to try to connect with farmer. At least like if you have a 5 ingredient, 10 ingredient, you can connect, you can make a pilot project for 100 farmer for 1 ingredient. Initially, we can start with working over the quality. Ultimately, when we will have the final product, we will have a good quality. Apart from that, if we talk about the R&D and technology, I was supposing that we have very good educational institute, and there is a very gap between industry and technology. When I was a student, I was even not aware about. I just studied this food preservation and all these techniques. But now the things have differently changed. So industry, they have the requirement. So my next thing to discuss that we can, as an industry, associate with at least one educational institute.
Someone mentioned about the behavioral change, which is a very difficult thing to achieve. In case of biofortification, there are no change in the sensory attributes, no change in the hedonic factors that people are. So they are.
You've taken a note of some issues that we discussed in the morning, and we will try to create a platform where there could be more regular interaction. You also yourself given an idea on a possible platform, so I'm sure industry will pick that up, and we shall work with you on this. I think very important suggestion on hand-holding of the small players in this. I think we should make a note of it and figure out how is it possible for us to really make this happen, and some of your suggestions on self-compliances versus regulation and science-based evidence versus, I think, claims. That's something which is noteworthy, and I think you again through this emphasize that we need to have the consumer
industry come together to really take this brand India to somewhere which probably is, for example, how Scotland is famous for Scotch or Australia for wines. But there's so many things. Why can't India capture that space? And we have got probably all the elements. We just need to stitch it together. I think that is super critical. And the third point I would like to mention is, thanks to COVID, we probably realized the importance of immunity. We realized the importance of our own well-being. And it forced us to think through our health and wellness, which probably we were taking a bit taken for granted approach. And that itself creates a huge industry for us in this ingredient space, that health and wellness is such a huge space that each one have their own nice sweet spot to operate from. I think these are the three things which really came out. I'm just reflecting on the morning session, and amazing, super excited about that.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Can I have Mr. Glover, would you want to give an opening comment?
Siraj Saab, our advisor, our guide, who has been mentoring many of us for last many years. Look forward to your words, sir. Colleagues from industry, delegates from media, friends and colleagues who are joining online today who couldn't make it to for this physical meeting. Sir, we are indeed honored and humbled by your presence in our midst today. At the outset, I would like to take the opportunity to thank you on behalf of FICCI and members present here and not present here and who are engaged in food ingredient sector.
So we are working with sweetener, GM regulation, probiotics, and all this technical stuff. So from there, this emerged the need for doing something for the food in the sector. And the first one which we did was in 2019, and subsequently we could not do it in 2021 because of COVID. But this is the second year conference. We will build up to make it as an annual flagship conference for food in the sector. Obviously, we will bring in more elements in the next conference, and I, as FICCI, already have mandates given by Satish and MD Professor for the next edition. Having said that, we also felt there is a need to have some kind of
improve safety and freshness and maintain the nutritional value of food. In fact, even natural foods may be using additives. For example, apples, which we eat now for 6 to 7 months a year.
Due to Corona and in terms of wars that are happening in the country. So what are your what is the future plans if situations like this come in the future? So how is India sustainable enough for such kind of challenges?